Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. As you know, this channel has a pretty big focus on versus battles and animals and stuff like that. So today I am gonna discuss on 4 animal battles that people think are close, where either side might have an equal chance of winning or something, but they're not really close. They're very one-sided, and one side has a pretty massive advantage over the other. So let's get into let's get into it without further ado. And the first battle is the canids versus felids. Now, I should clarify something here. Here in this particular picture, I'm using some of the largest estimates for wolves versus some of the bigger estimates for leopards. But this is a representative battle and not exactly just this particular canid versus this particular felid. The felid could also be jaguars, it could also be snow leopards, it could also be cougars. Mainly that are felids that are close in size to the canids. Now, obviously, using something like a lion or tiger would be a bit too much, but even in this case, it's a bit representative in the way, and same goes for canid. I use the biggest possible canid for the fair fight, and this could also be dire wolf as well, because grey wolves and dire wolves, yes, they had some difference in weight and size, but they didn't have some stark difference, that much of a difference. And why this fight is not fair is the felid wins. Very likely is that the leopard is gonna win against a wolf pretty much 90% of the time. Like, the wolf will have to be impossibly lucky to get any good hits on the leopard in a 1v1 situation. First of all, in terms of weight, even though the wolf looks bigger, the leopard is actually the heavier animal here. The largest wolves, I believe, are like 80-85 kilograms, whereas the largest leopards could be like 120, 130 kilograms. So that's like, if you take the largest, yes, the leopard or the other cat's still gonna be pretty big compared to the wolf. But even if we assume for a second they are like same weight, even then the cat has so many serious advantages in this case. First of all, wolves have pretty much one attack point, and that is their face. They can bite. That's one attack they have. Cats easily have 3 attack points. They have the 2 front paws with non-retractable, sharp, big claws, and their extremely powerful mouth with very sharp teeth that they can bite with. So already it's 3 versus 1. All the cat needs to do is just slap the wolf's face away and bite the neck. That's game over. Some people often say that there are some dog breeds that can beat a leopard or puma or jaguar in a 1v1, like someone said Dogo Argentino or something like um, Turkish Kangal. I would just like to point out that's not true. Like, without a serious protective collar with like big spikes, these dogs struggle against grown wolves, let alone a leopard or jaguar or something like that. That's actually why they have those very spiky collars, so that the big cats don't instantly grab their neck and tear them to shreds. This is the If you take the collar off and then just let the dog go fight it, it will get grabbed in by the neck in 2 seconds and choked to death. So yeah, not really a fair fight. Like, even in domestic animals, you will see cats which are like 1/5 the size of dogs, absolutely brutally bullying them, like slapping them around, cornering them. And that's the thing. The cats have so much agility and fighting experience that the wolves cannot just get a opening well enough to bite them. Wolves in general are not very accustomed. Wolves or dogs in general are not very accustomed to fighting in a 1v1. they're a very pack animal, and for the most part they fight in groups. In a 1v1 they struggle to find a proper opening. Maybe against something like a goat or a deer they might, like some very skilled wolves might, but against an agile opponent like a cat, they just won't stand much of a chance. They will get grabbed very quickly, they will get pinned down, and then they will get choked out. There's just no way. Pretty much only situation I can see that the wolf might win is like if they have a huge size difference, like the wolf has to be at least 3 times the size of the cat. Then maybe. Now the next battle is the most overhyped one, and probably is the most unfair one, and that is tiger versus gorilla. Okay, I don't know why people think this is a fair fight. It's not even a close fight. Like, the tiger absolutely demolishes the gorilla. By the way, this also applies to lions, by the way, because tigers and lions are pretty close sized, and if a tiger can kill something, a lion can also kill something. There is not much difference in their sizes and killing capabilities. Though the lion's a bit better fighter and the tiger's a bit better in terms of hunting, but other than that, they can, in a fight, they can take on the same opponents pretty easily. And first of all, look at the sizes, right? Now, since the gorilla is standing on 2 legs, it may seem a bigger opponent. That's not the case. The tiger's actually pretty much 100 kilograms heavier than the gorilla. Like, for instance, the biggest gorillas are like what, 200, 250, something like that. That's captivity range. In wild they're like 200. That's like the cap for gorillas. Meanwhile, in the wild, tigers have been known to be 315 kilograms, which is easily 100 kilograms more than the gorilla. Already the tiger has a size advantage, not to mention that the gorillas are not really combative and don't really have experience fighting anything of similar size or bigger, whereas tigers on the regular hunt things that are bigger than them. They hunt sambar deer, they hunt nilgais, which are like an antelope, which is very big, similar to the size of a very large elk or a female moose actually. They also hunt much bigger prey like gaur, and on occasions they even kill rhinos and elephants, mostly the juveniles, but sometimes adults as well. And the arsenal that the tiger has, the gorilla has no defense against it. Now, yes, the gorilla has a bite that is supposedly stronger than the tiger's bite, but the thing is that the bite force alone is not an indicator of damage. The type of teeth an animal has also indicates what type of damage they will do. Yes, gorillas have canines, but they're very short and very blunt, so they don't penetrate very deep. And gorillas don't have the type of capabilities with ambush where they can bite the throat of the tiger or something like that. Whereas tigers have much longer, sharp, pointy canines which can dig into very vital areas of their prey. And apart from that, gorillas, like other apes, including humans, have very thin skin. So, with the tiger's claws and teeth slashing onto it, it will open like gaping wounds that the gorilla will bleed profusely from. And meanwhile, the gorilla, on the other hand, has pretty much no real counterplay options to the tiger's tactics. Like, they don't really have any sort of claws. They can punch, but to be honest, tigers get gored by buffaloes, stomped by much bigger animals like antelope and nilgai and stuff like that, and they shrug it off, no issues. Not to mention, tigers swipe each other all the time, and their skin and their bones and their muscles are so tough, they just take those beatings and they just shrug it off. Meanwhile, even something much smaller like a leopard absolutely mauls gorillas on the regular. So yeah, something much bigger, a tiger or a lion, would kill a gorilla very easily. I would say this is like a 95% chance that the gorilla is not gonna make it out alive. The thing is, like, some people bring up that, oh, the gorilla is smarter, which is true. Yes, gorillas are very smart, But there are different kinds of smartness. Like gorillas are smart in terms of they can understand language, they can appreciate things, they have emotions, but they don't really have any battle intelligence. Neither do they have any battle experience fighting other similarly sized carnivores. Whereas a tiger has so much experience hunting and killing things that in this case the intelligence advantage gorillas have, this won't really make much of a difference to a charging tiger. And some people say that the gorilla might use the terrain to its advantage and climb the tree. If it's a big silverback, it's not going to be able to climb the tree fast enough to escape the tiger, because tigers have a vertical of like 16 feet. They can jump almost 16 feet in the air. The gorilla has no way of climbing out of this. Like in the previous fight, there's a chance that the wolf might run away. In this case, the gorilla cannot even run away. It's absolutely gonna get mauled by the tiger in the most brutal way. The fight would go more like the gorilla will swing once and then get instantly grabbed by the tiger and choked to death, or maybe the spine gets bitten and broken. Now let's move on to the next fight, which is even more unfair somehow, and that is large prehistoric crocodilians versus large prehistoric snakes. So in this particular case, the large prehistoric crocodilians are represented by the Purosaurus and Deinosuchus, Ostrogosuchus, and things like that, whereas the large snakes are represented by Titanoboa and Vasuki indicus. And this fight also, people keep hyping this fight up all the time, like especially if you see any art involving Titanoboa, like 90% of the art is that it's trying to kill some giant crocodile. In reality, these fights are not fair. And I can see why people think they might be fair, because the crocodile's 40 feet long and the snake is 40 feet long, or maybe longer, so maybe it's a close fight. In reality, length isn't really a proper measure of the size of an animal. The weight is, and when you start looking at the weights, you begin to see how unfair these fights are. For example, Purosaurus and Deinosuchus, on an average, like the biggest species of Deinosuchus, hatchery we are taking, and Purosaurus brasiliensis, both biggest species of crocodilians of all time, they on average weighed like 8,000 kilograms. They weighed like 8 tons. On the other hand, some of the biggest titanoboas would be like 1,000 kilograms to maybe 1,200 kilograms. And Vasuki indicus, despite being longer, was actually a bit more lightweight. It was slimmer. So it would be somewhere like 800 to 1,000 kilograms. And not to mention, like the biggest of the crocodilians, like the Purosaurus and Deinosuchus hatchery, especially Deinosuchus hatchery, the biggest size estimates put it somewhere like 14,000 to 15,000 kilograms, which is easily more than 10 times the weight of these snakes. These snakes, first of all, Titanoboa, we don't know if it could constrict, and even if the Vasuki indicus can constrict, they cannot constrict something like 10 times their size. They just simply won't be able to wrap around in time. Meanwhile, these crocodiles, all they need to do is just chomp once, and the snake will be like bitten in half. And this also kind of transitions into modern day big crocodilians versus big snakes. Like people often put anacondas and reticulated pythons against some of the bigger crocodilians like saltwater crocodiles, Nile crocodiles, and Orinoco crocodiles, black caimans, American alligators. In reality, fully grown individuals would one-shot any snake. Like anything that is bigger than a spectacled caiman, any of the modern crocodilian species that are bigger than a spectacled caiman or maybe Chinese alligator, they would absolutely demolish any of the modern largest snakes, like reticulated python, be it green anacondas, Burmese python. They're also, the size ratio is also the same. Like the croc is again nearly 10 times the size of the snake. Like saltwater crocodiles, some of the biggest individuals that were caught, remember not confirmed but caught, were like Lolong, which was like 1,000 kilograms. Meanwhile, the average snake, like a reticulated python or anaconda, like if it's 100 kilograms, it's like a really big snake. Meanwhile, some of the biggest crocodilians ever confirmed, like the modern day species among saltwater crocodiles, was like Don Carlia, which was like 2,000 kilograms. And meanwhile, if a snake is pushing 200 kilograms, that's a record breaking snake. So again, it's like a 10 times bigger animal that has vice grip for jaws. Not just vice grip, more like sledgehammer for jaws, massive peg-like teeth, and just the endurance. Even in this fight, I think it's 100% win for the crocodile. There is just no situation where the snake comes on top. With constriction or without, like, the snake won't be able to constrict against a prey this big. And most of the time snakes constrict against prey that is like about half their size or smaller. So this is why things like spectacled caiman or juvenile black caimans are the largest crocodilians the large snakes can realistically kill, but anything bigger than that is like too big for them to actually constrict. And on the other hand, these jaws are just so powerful, and some people say that the snake might be able to sneak up, which is also highly unlikely because the crocodiles just have the sensory organs on their lips, on their sides, which will detect like small fish moving in the water, or a drop falling in the water. So a snake moving through, yeah, they would get detected very quickly. Even in this case, the snake cannot escape. Like the crocs, like despite being like 10 times this size, is a lot faster in both land and water. The snake will get grabbed very quickly, shaken to death, and chomped into bits. This is not a fair fight. And we move on to the final fight, and that is Smilodon Populator versus Kelenken. Now, a lot of people always hype this fight up. Most of the times the Kelenken fans saying that, oh yeah, the Kelenken was like 10, 12 foot tall and could easily demolish a Smilodon. Hold on there, buddy. First of all, again, we have the same problem with the croc and snake situation. The animal might look taller, but when you look at the weights, you start to see how unfair this fight is. The largest, like the average Kelenken, like a big, fully grown individual, was like 150 kilograms. And some of the biggest individuals are like 200 kilograms to 250. Like that's like the maximum size for them, like a record breaking size. Meanwhile, Smilodons easily, on an average, weighed above 350 kilograms. That's more than double the average Kelenken, and bigger than the biggest Kelenken. And some of the biggest record breaking Smilodons were like 500 kilograms, 540 kilograms. So already you begin to see how much the size difference is. But some people say, oh, the Kelenken has the beak. Yes, it has the beak, but it is also attached to a very flimsy long neck, which is not gonna do all that much once the massive cat pounces on it. By the way, this not just applies to Smilodon, this applies to any other large cat of comparable size. And imagine this, an animal that is like 4 or 5 times, not just 4 or 5, at least 2 or 3 times heavier, 3 to 4 times heavier than you, jumps on top of you. The Kelenken won't be able to stand after that. First of all, it's a bird, so it has hollow bones, and with such a big creature latching onto it, it's gonna fall over, and with one bite from those massive fangs, it's gonna die very, very quickly. Like people often, I don't know why people keep like hyping this fight up. Like any other fight would be much closer. Like for example, Smilodon versus short-faced bear is that's a close fight or fair fight, or something like Smilodon versus American lion is a close fight. But this, not really. This is a very unfair fight. This is similar to an ostrich versus a lion, which, yeah, the ostrich might win. No, not really. The lion will grab it like instantly, pretty much. It will charge, try to kick. The cat has so much agility. It will dodge out of the way, leap onto the bird, and just pounce, pin it down, and just rip chunks off of it. Now, if it was something like a Utah raptor or some other dinosaur, a dromaeosaurid of a similar length, okay, that would be a fair fight. But this is not a dromaeosaurid. I don't know why people keep comparing Kelenkin or other terror birds with Allosauruses for some reason, but that's not what they are. They're not the second coming of dinosaurs. Not really. And we see this happen. Like, they got outcompeted as well, possibly hunted to extinction by the Smilodons once the land bridge between the North and South America was opened. The Kelenken went extinct pretty quickly afterwards. So there you have it. Four battles that I think are not really close, but people keep claiming they're close. If you want me to cover more of these, where we find battles that are not close in real life or in fiction, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know in the comments about fights that are the opposite of this, where people think it's a very one-sided fight, but it's actually a very close fight. If you guys have any such suggestions, let me know in the comments. As always, like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching, I guess.